This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. In the Tower of Angurak, after discovering a group of the Brethren of the Purifying Light, led by none other than Jenna's nemesis, Adric, and having lulled them into believing that they were allies, the party attacked. In a flashback, we learnt about Jenna's past, and how Reynard of Harburg, under false pretences, had convinced Jenna to go to Kerodu with Adric. We learned how during their journey, Adric charmed Jenna into believing that he was genuine and kind, and through his deception, the young woman began to trust him, until, under the shadow of that cursed place, Adric seduced her. Back in the present, despite taking the Brethren by surprise, the companions found themselves in a bitter fight. Lena managed to incapacitate 3 of the Brethren by means of a hold-person miracle, but soon reinforcements arrived from the floor above, including an experienced fighter. All of the companions except Valen and Talion were injured, Beric grievously so, but one by one the companions killed the Brethren until only Adric remained. The Brethren cleric had been locked in battle with Jenna throughout, but seeing his comrades fall, and he himself badly wounded, Adric finally gave in, deliberately opening his guard for Jenna to deliver the killing blow. Chapter 43, Part 1, Day 41, Evening. Party status: Beric, 4 out of 37 hit points. Lena, 12 out of 26 hit points. Valen, 17 out of 17 hit points. Talion, 24 out of 24 hit points. Canute, 23 out of 31 hit points. Jenna, 5 out of 12 hit points. Arn, 6 out of 18 hit points. Spells available: Valen has memorised Soothe and Revive. Talion has memorised Resolve and Pitch. Lena can pray for 2 first-level miracles and 1 second-level miracle. Jenna can pray for 1 first-level miracle. Straddled over his body, Jenna wept uncontrollably as she continued to strike wildly at Adric's face, though little remained other than a bludgeoned mess of blood, brain and shattered bone. Her own features were smeared with his blood, through which her tears ran in pink streaks. But finally, weariness overcame her, and dropping her blood-soaked warhammer, she fell upon his corpse, sobbing. The next thing she knew, firm but tender hands were placed on her shoulders, gently encouraging her to rise. It was Lena. The cleric's face was full of empathy. She put her arms around Jenna and held her close. "It's over," she proffered softly. Jenna had not told Lena about the intimacy she had shared with Adric, but the cleric knew. For a woman who has known betrayal in love can see it in the heart of another. They knelt there, Lena holding the young woman and stroking her matted hair until her weeping subsided. Jenna slowly pulled back to look at the cleric, cuffing away the tears and snot.
Adric, Adric, he was...
She could not find the words. Lena took Jenna's still shaking hands. She felt her pain, and was reminded of her own experience of betrayal. Would it ever be the case that women should suffer at the hands of powerful men? She wondered. "I know," she said sympathetically. "He has power over you no longer. You are free." Jenna nodded.
Yes. Yes. I am free.
She agreed, managing a small smile. The moment was interrupted by the sound of Beric moaning, and the two women looked to see their companions bloodied and bruised. Valen was tending the big warrior, but such were his wounds, it was clear that the mage's skill alone would not be enough. "Come," Lena said, giving Jenna's hand a gentle squeeze. "Our friends need us." When I introduced Jenna at Kerodu, it was simply to add colour to the dark ritual being conducted by Nadra's acolytes. At that point, she was a nameless woman, a throwaway NPC, whom I fully expected to be collateral damage in the subsequent battle. But the power of this type of procedurally driven game, come story, is that the dice decided that she should have a name and a story to tell. And I must say that I am finding her arc deeply satisfying. Now, given that several members of the party are badly wounded, it makes sense that the companions will need to spend several days at Angrak in order to recover. But what of the tower's mistress, the mage Demelza, and the hellstone in her keeping, the Eye of Krevik? Let's ask the Oracle. Is Demelza at the tower? A 3. That's a no but. Okay, so is the Eye of Krevik at the tower? A 2. That's a straight no. Intriguing. I think it is safe to assume that Demelza has taken the jewel somewhere. Perhaps she anticipated the brethren coming for the jewel. So are there any clues as to where she may have gone? A 5. That's a straight yes. Okay, that gives me an idea. As for how long the party stays at Angrak, well, I want them to return to full health. So I will make prayer and casting rolls for healing off mic, and work out the number of days this will take. Also, given this was the home of a powerful mage, it stands to reason that the party may find something of use. Having said that, much was destroyed by the Brethren of the Purifying Light, and as we will soon find out, Demelza did not leave in a hurry. On that basis, I'm going to rule that there is a 25% chance of there being something noteworthy. A 22. Okay, so I am going to say that there is a 50% chance that the thing they find is magical. A 42. Now, as my setting is relatively low magic, I don't use the BX rules for magic items, and instead I have my own random tables. I am going to roll to see what the party has found. Rolling 2d6. A 10. That's a piece of jewellery. Now I am going to roll a d6 to determine its power. A 6. That will be a random magical effect. One more table to consult. A 4. Let's see. Protection from cold. I have to admit to being a little disappointed by that result. But then again, I don't know what challenges await the companions, so you never know, it might prove useful. Right, I think it's time to get back to the story. Chapter 43, Part 2, Day 44, Evening. Party status. Beric, 33 out of 37 hit points. Lena, 26 out of 26 hit points. Valen, 17 out of 17 hit points. Talion, 24 out of 24 hit points. Canute, 27 out of 31 hit points. Jenna, 11 out of 12 hit points. Arn, 16 out of 18 hit points. Spells available. Valen has memorized Push, Shield, Revive, and Clairvoyance. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, and Imbue. Lena can pray for 2 second-level miracles. The companions remained at Angurak for several days, for their wounds were grievous, and Beric, having only narrowly escaped death, had been too weak to move. That besides, a storm swirled in from the west upon the second day, causing the sea to vent its fury upon the rocky headland, lightning forking through the sky in great cracks, so that even if they were fit to do so, travel would have been ill-advised. Fortunately, a search of the tower's kitchen garnered a barrel of salted herring, as well as onions, pickled eggs, and a sack of grain, which along with their rations at least meant they did not go hungry. After the battle, the 3 brethren who had been paralysed by Lena's miracle were stripped to their underclothes and sent on their way. Canute had wanted to execute them. The Skarne saw no sense in freeing captured enemies, who would only hound them in the future. But other than Arn, the others had no taste for killing in cold blood, and when put to a vote, it was agreed that the men would be released. As for the dead, those that could interred them in a shallow grave, and Lena performed the burial rite to commit their departed souls to Naya. The cleric had been struggling with her conscience ever since. It was one thing to defend oneself from attack, but they had initiated the fight, and whilst the Brethren's ideology was abhorrent to her, in their own misguided way, they were still followers of the Nine. When she confessed her feelings to Valen, the mage pointed out that the Brethren murdered anyone they deemed to be a heathen or heretic, and that if they had not attacked, then sure as night follows day, the Brethren would have tried to kill them. There was wisdom in Valen's counsel, of course, and Lena always found solace in his words. It was the evening after the storm, and the pair looked out north upon the sea from a window on the top floor of the tower, where they had come to be alone. The gentle sigh and murmur of the black water on the rocks below made the storm that raged just a day before seem distant and ephemeral. Lena found pleasure in asking Valen to point out constellations and describing their significance in Wayland culture. She knew the patterns of the stars, of course, but she enjoyed coaxing the mage to speak, and she listened intently as he told the legends of his homeland. "Talion would be better than I to tell the tales," Valen had said, but Lena had insisted that she wished to hear him. "And what about that one?" she asked, pointing to the constellation that she knew as Amada, the Maiden. "That is Rhiannon, the Beloved," the mage replied. "Rhiannon was the daughter of Urien, a powerful warlord. Urien loved his daughter, who was the fairest maid in all the land, and he promised that only a man who truly loved her could win her hand. So when a rival warlord, Madoc ap Griffith, proposed a marriage to his son, Urien refused, for it was known well that the son was as cruel as the father. Madoc was furious, and in revenge entreated a hag to lay a curse upon Rhiannon, so that no man would ever desire her. And so, by the hag's dark sorcery, Rhiannon's fair features became scarred and ugly. Rhiannon took to hiding her face, and her only solace was to walk in the forest, away from prying eyes. One day, while resting by a waterfall, she sang, for she loved to do so, and her voice was as pure as the mountain stream. And as she sang, her voice was carried by the wind to the ears of Callan Weir, a poor woodsman. Hearing Rhiannon's sweet singing, Callan Weir immediately fell in love with her. He followed her voice to the waterfall, and looking upon her face saw no ugliness, only the beauty of her soul, for his name meant true of heart. The woodsman watched, and as Rhiannon sang, she wept, for her song was a lament for what she had lost. 2 of her tears fell into the water and were turned into diamonds, for the pool was an enchanted place. Callan Weir then spoke to her, but in her shame, Rhiannon fled back to her father's stronghold. All the same, Callan Weir's heart was already lost, so he followed her back, but Rhiannon refused to see him or believe his professed love. So Callan Weir went back to the waterfall and collected the diamonds which had been Rhiannon's tears. Then, from the branch of a willow, Callan Weir carved the form of a nightingale and set the diamonds as its eyes, before placing it in the pool as an offering and praying to its spirit to help him prove his love for Rhiannon. In answer to his prayer, the spirit caused the nightingale to come to life and fly away to Urien's stronghold. There, it flew into the room where Rhiannon slept and woke her with its old song. 'Twas the most beautiful sound she had ever heard, and the music told of Callan Weir's love for her and the truth in his heart. And so it was that Rhiannon and Callan Weir were wed, and they had many children, all fair and strong, and Callan Weir never once saw ugliness in Rhiannon, for in his eyes she was ever fair, and forever his beloved. Valen fell silent. The pair merely looked up at the stars. Lena thought of Jenna, and what she supposed had passed between the young woman and Adric, and deep down she knew that her own experience with Merrin had caused her to hold back with Valen. That, and the pink fern-like scars which covered her body. For whilst she and the mage had confessed their feelings for each other, their love had not been consummated. Not that Valen had expressed an impatience to do so. If anything, it was the opposite. He was respectful, and seemed content that they simply share an emotional intimacy. But, she thought, what if the next battle was her last, or his? After all, she had almost died at the hands of Nadra. Life was fragile and fleeting. They had already lost friends, and death seemed to be their constant companion. "What think you?" Valen asked, breaking the silence which had hung between them for several minutes. It was an unusual thing for him to say. He himself was taciturn in nature, but clearly he saw that there was something on her mind. It was not an intrusion, it was care. Lena looked at him, holding his gaze with her green eyes, and at that moment he seemed to her to be an open book. It was as if Kayla had drawn back the veil and shown her his soul, and she realized then that he had never known a woman. His brow furrowed quizzically at her scrutiny. "Lena?" Without speaking, Lena turned to face him fully, and reaching up, she wrapped her arms about his neck, pulling him forward. She kissed him, gently at first, and then passionately, pressing her lips firmly upon his. She felt his body tense, perhaps in surprise at the urgency of her kiss. But then his muscles relaxed as he began to reciprocate. They explored each other with a growing sense of desire. Lena pulled back to look at him. He had a rectangular face and a long, slightly crooked nose. His features were pleasing, though he was not conventionally handsome. But the thing that drew Lena in were his eyes, for they revealed a deep well of feeling. She was resolved. "Lie with me, tonight," Chapter 43, Part 3, Day 45, Morning. Party status: Beric, 37 out of 37 hit points. Lena, 26 out of 26 hit points. Valen, 17 out of 17 hit points. Talion, 24 out of 24 hit points. Canute, 31 out of 31 hit points. Jenna, 12 out of 12 hit points. Arn, 18 out of 18 hit points. Spells available: Valen has memorized Push, Shield, Soothe, Revive, and Clairvoyance. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, and Imbue. Lena can pray for 2 first-level miracles and 2 second-level miracles. Jenna can pray for 1 first-level miracle. The cries and shrills of countless seabirds heralded the dawn, rousing Valen from his slumber. He lay there for a minute, not wishing to open his eyes, for he did not wish to leave his dream behind. Finally, he half opened his eyes. They stung a little at the bright sunlight which shone through the eastern window of the chamber, where he and Lena had made their bed. Beside him, he could feel the cleric stirring beneath the blankets. Her face was peaceful and serene, her auburn hair shimmering in the morning light, and the mage thought how beautiful she was. The blanket had fallen away to expose her bare, freckled shoulder, and he felt an uncontrollable desire to touch her. He leaned over and gently kissed her on the forehead, breathing deep her scent. Lena let out a small groan, then slowly opened her eyes. "Good morning," she said sleepily, then smiled. Valen stroked her shoulder, her skin warm from the makeshift bed they shared. He felt an unexpected sense of completeness, as if, through their union, Lena had become part of him, and he her. He could not explain it, other than, for the first time in his life, he felt whole. It struck him then that the power he had sought all his life had been a crutch, a substitute for that which he had lacked in his life, and that ultimately it was all meaningless. Meaningless without this, without her, Lena. Uindigariti. Lena looked at him quizzically, recognizing that he spoke in his native Wayland tongue. "What does that mean?" "You already know." Lena smiled, her beaming face lighting up. Then reaching over, she pulled him close. Later that morning, while the companions broke their fast, Valen showed them a piece of half-burnt parchment that he had discovered while searching the tower. "It is a letter," the mage explained. "Sent to Demelza some 9 months since by my master, Amos." "What say it?" Beric asked. "It would seem that Amos had learned that the Brethren of the Purifying Light were seeking the Hellstones," Valen replied. "I remember that my master went on a journey around that time. He told me he had business in Dravance," he added. "Is there anything else?" "Yes. Amos advises Demelza that Angurak is no longer safe, given its proximity to Porthcallan, and he suggests she seeks a more remote home. This tells us that the keepers of the Hellstones have long been known to each other." "That's all very well," Beric countered, a little dismissively. but we still know not where she went.
Ah, but that we may, Berg.
The mate replied, producing a second parchment and unfurling it upon the table. It was a map of Powan Moor.
We are here.
Valen put his finger on the map.
But look.
He moved his finger to a point at the end of a mountain range, labelled as the Dragon's Spine, where someone had drawn around a place, above which was written Pen Melkeen.
There is no certainty that is where this Demelza went.
Canute pointed out.
True, but my intuition tells me it is. And a location in the mountains would by its very nature be remote.
Canute seemed to accept this. After all, mages had access to insight that was beyond most folk to comprehend, and Valen's logic was sound.
My lord,
Arn interrupted, addressing Canute.
surely a journey inland would involve abandoning the Uverdraka.
Canute nodded his understanding, but then looked more intently at the map.
We might be able to navigate that.
He said, indicating a river from a settlement called Varfell, at the foot of the Dragonspine Mountains, which ran all the way to Mullion.
Aye, as long as there's no rapids.
Arn cautioned.
Agreed. But, that given, even with rowing upstream, it should be quicker and less hazardous than a journey on foot.
The Skarne concluded.
Then it is agreed.
Beric said decisively.
We travel by river to Varfell. And after that, well, we shall see.
Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? A newcomer to the show, playing Arn, is Brian C. Rideout. Brian is the host of two amazing podcasts, Trans Real News, a hilarious surreal comedy show that puts Gonzo to a new level, and Swords Against Madness, Brian's new solo actual play, which after just a few episodes, I'm already hooked. Returning in the role of Jenna is Fiona K.T. Howard. Fiona is an actor and improviser, as well as the host of the What Am I Rolling and the DM Book Club podcasts. And finally, returning once again in the role of Canute is Jon Cohen, creator of Tale of the Manticore. I'll put these wonderful folks' links in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you'd like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. I would also love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones at ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.
Reload your three-bladed sword. Get comfortable in your studded leather kirtle or your chainmail bikini. Fire up the wizard van. It's about to get weird. Swords Against Madness is a hybrid storytelling and solo OSR role-playing game experience where I take you through a world of pulpy weird fiction and gonzo OSR role-playing game goodness, as my player characters deal with telepathic squid, crashed spaceships, deranged Cthulhu cultists, immortal space barbarians, and priests worshipping ancient robots. And that's just in the first 2 episodes. Come and party like it's 1974 with Swords Against Madness. Available anywhere where you can download your finest podcast.